Hey everyone, welcome to another video. Today we're going to talk about issue number 13 of X-Men from the Ashes, is part 4 of the X-Manhunt event written by Jed MacKay. But before we dive into the story, I want to ask you a favor. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and a comment to help the channel grow. So with that said, this issue opens up exactly where the last part of this event left off. And when we get to Utopia, we see Scott still out of commission as Psylocke communicates with Beast about how they were defeated. And as they stood there, Psylocke went on to say, San Francisco is suffering from Charles's psychic bleed. In her wisdom, Storm has flown an Omega psychic contagion over a densely populated area. So the best we could do is make Scott comfortable as magic prepared to move us, for Storm has given shelter to the man who stole my mind and will in Greymalkin, and I will not let that pass. So with that going down, we then jump over to the Thundercloud with Charles controlling Beast. And as he was doing that, he stated, Beast, I simply can't have you destroying the Thundercloud. As much as you and I might disagree about what I am doing, I have responsibilities. So as Charles continued to dive into Beast's mind, he couldn't help but notice a little knot hidden away within it. And as Charles continued to investigate, a voice came from behind him saying, I installed Psychoms in everyone's brains, a limited telepathy subroutine that uses Y brain as a hub. Self-sustaining, so I don't have to pay much attention to it. Now to this, Charles had to admit that this piece of tech was extremely clever, and then went on to ask if Scott sent him to clip his wings, telepath to telepath. So with that out there, Quentin corrected Charles and said Omega to Omega, and then continued to say, I psychically inoculated our X-Men against your telepathic bleed, but I can't do that to everyone in San Francisco who you're driving insane. So I have to cut it off at the source. So with a smile on Charles's face, he just simply replied by saying, have it you then, because I will not be stopped. So as the Battle of Minds kicked off, we then transitioned back to the lobby with Eternity beating Juggernaut down. And while Eternity was doing that, it stated, you have been beaten, Juggernaut, but still you rise. So as blood flowed out of Kane, he returned to his feet beaten and bloody and shouted, what, you think this is the worst I've been beaten? Now, my old man, he could lay a beating, hit me so hard I think I went colorblind one time. You think I'm a monster, who do you think made me one? So if you think you can top Kurt Marco for punishment, you've got some catching up to do. So come on, then, cause I can take it. With that fight playing out, we then jump back to the factory in Alaska, and when we get there, Zorn was stating how he should be there with the rest of the team. To which Max corrected him and said, Zorn, you have a black hole for a brain. If Charles's psychic contagion induced you to remove your helmet, it would be catastrophic. And Ben, I think we can all agree that one assault on San Francisco by your thought form alien fleet was enough. Now that was a callback to issue number 2 of this run, when the team first encountered B. But anyway, out of nowhere, on the next panel, Magic teleported in and stole Magneto's helmet and disappeared without saying a word. And on the following page, Magic placed said helmet on the head of Beast, breaking him out of the mental control of Charles. So with Beast free, we then see Charles and Quentin going at it on the astral plane, and let's say, this is one fight I think no one would want to jump in on. And as this battle was going down, Charles was leading a class full of himself, trying to explain to Quentin that a battle between Omega and Omega could only end in a stalemate. But in some situations that could be changed, because Charles then went on to say, if two Omega telepaths were perfectly matched in power, like you and I, for instance, then other variables are what would determine the winner in any such conflict. And that would be experience. So as Charles presses his attack on Quentin, we then jump over to Eternity, still putting in work on Kane. And with defiance in Kane's voice, he asked, is that all you got? To which Eternity replied by saying, my winds will strip the flesh even from your bones. But before Eternity could let loose, Temper and Magic entered the room and stopped Storm's power at the source. For Temper stated, it's just air moving around, and what moves it is temperature. And as you control the weather, I control what makes it. Following that, Eternity stood up and said, I control far more than the wind. And just like that, Storm started to materialize electric swords. Which was right up Magic's alley, for she did the same thing. And after Kane summoned a new mask, they dived back into battle again. So as that fight kicked off, we then jumped back to Charles still fighting Quentin. And during that fight, Charles mentally dismantled Quentin by saying, you see, I remember who you were before the hair, before the clothes, and before the revolutionary posturing. Because back then you were just a very clever and very lonely boy. You were an invisible boy. A boy who cut himself on the sharp edges of the empty place in the puzzle he tried to fit himself into. This need not go any further, Quentin, for I take no pleasure in any of this. You can surrender at any time, But until you do, I fear that you force my hand. Following that, we then jump back over to Eternity still fighting against Magic. And to my surprise, Magic sat back and watched Kane run up on Storm and punch her right in the face, a punch that would have killed her if Eternity wasn't in her. In fact, Juggernaut even went on to say, if blunt force trauma ain't working for you, then you ain't using enough of it. Luckily for Storm, Eternity was on deck and absorbed the hit and replied by saying, "Are you finished?" Following this boss move, Magic decided to take a small peek within Storm's soul, and based on that, Magic instantly knew that they were in the deep end. Because what she saw within Storm was something much bigger than a demon, and much worse. But regardless of what Magic's seen, she still had a job to do and dived back into battle. Now while all that was going down, we then see Psylocke looking at a cocoon that Maggot built after consuming that orb last issue. An orb that Eternity made from a god and had Maggot consume after he lost his arm to Kane. And according to Eternity, this orb should make him into an Omega, that is yet to be seen. So with their battle heating up, we then watched as Charles just continued his assault on Quentin. And then he went on to say, "End this please, surrender. This is no longer a contest between us, it's just abuse." To that, Quentin replied by saying, "You are right, I don't know what to make of myself back then, but even then, I knew that I didn't want to be you." And to that, Charles could completely agree with. But see, Quentin wasn't done yet, for he stated, "It's about time you met my attorney." Which was something I left behind, a trap thought form I picked out of someone's mind. Something I caged and quarantined in my own brain, in case it could be useful. This was something that Quentin called a family reunion because the thing he caged away was a little piece of Cassandra Nova. So as Charles walked right into that trap, we then transitioned back over to Eternity's battle, but this time Psylocke had an ace up her sleeve, for she had her sword inches away from a sleeping Maggot. With this hostage on the table, Eternity said "as you wish," and stopped its attack. But to that, Psylocke just replied by saying, "I am not talking to you, I'm talking to Storm. You are going to take back control of your body, or I will drive my sword into the man within this cocoon and kill him. Because that is the lesson I am here to teach. When a being of your power acts wrongly, people die. You have been worshipped as a goddess. Of course, you can't imagine being wrong. So let that shame give you power and take control back." With that going down, we then jump over to Beast stepping into Charles's and Quentin's battle to place Magneto's helmet on his head, and then injecting him. And once it was in, Charles was out cold. So with Charles taken down, both Beast and Quentin started to walk away, as we transitioned back over to Storm standing back in her battle clothes. And as she approached Psylocke, the goddess stated, "Stop, I am myself once more, so get your foot off of Maggot. Or would you really do it? Would you kill an innocent man to punish me?" And to that, Psylocke replied by saying, "You must have forgotten who I was. I killed more innocent men than some diseases." And then as the rest of the team arrives on the scene, Psylocke then went on to say, "Goddess, you may have been, but we are just monsters. And we are taking this monster with us," referring to Charles. And with their arrival, Psylocke then went on to say, "If you are unhappy with this arrangement, you know where to find me. I hear you like to settle things with knives. I'd be happy to accommodate you." So with that threat leveled, the team teleported out and regrouped with Cyclops. And once there, the first thing Scott asked for was for the casualties on this mission. To which Psylocke responds by saying, "There was none except for compromise. We had to promise Storm not to return Charles to Greymarket. With her resistance to telepathic attacks, she was unaware of his psychic bleed." But that wasn't all Psylocke had to say, because she also said, "Something extremely strange is happening to her, and now Maggot as well." And then Psylocke said it would bear observation before closing out her statement, right before Beast added his 2 cents. Now Beast went on to say, "As will Charles, for he has been heavily sedated, but we should be moving," and before Beast could finish his trail of thought, a voice on the next page said, "Put the bald man down, Beast. X-Factor would take him from here." And with that said, we see X-Factor standing and ready to do their thing. And with that said, Part 4 of X-Manhunt comes to an end in issue number 13 of X-Men. Now down in the comment section below, let me know your thoughts about this issue and what predictions you could have moving forward. So with that established, I hope you enjoyed this video, and please don't forget to leave a like and a comment if you want to see more videos like this. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.